Former President Donald Trump are the winners in their primaries, continuing to set the stage for a 2020 rematch. NBC's Bree Jackson joins us now. Hi, Bree, good morning. President Biden is facing a new challenge on the campaign trail.
Yes, that's right. Good morning, Francis. So the president is facing backlash over the response to the war between Israel and Hamas. In Michigan, President Biden won over 80% of the vote, but more than 10% of the ballots in the Democratic Party went to the option of uncommitted. A group called Listen to Michigan organized this effort to put pressure on the president to call for a lasting ceasefire in the war. And they saw activists in other states have reached out hoping to launch similar campaigns. Now, in a statement, Mr. Biden thanked Michiganders for making their voices heard, but did not directly address these uncommitted voters. Instead, the president touted investments made for the auto industry and his support of the Auto Workers Union. Meanwhile, Donald Trump celebrated his win by calling into a watch party.
It's going to be fantastic. We win Michigan. We win the whole thing. The auto workers are with us. We have so many people with us. They've destroyed the auto working business. I can tell you this, November 5th cannot come fast enough because our country's in serious trouble.
Trump's remaining challenger, Nikki Haley, is not backing down. She campaigned in Colorado yesterday as she focuses on Super Tuesday. More than a dozen primaries will be held next week with over 800 Republican delegates up for grabs. Francis.
Okay, Bree, thank you. A Ukraine funding meeting at the White House between President Biden, Vice President Harris, and congressional leaders got heated at times. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he told Republican Speaker Johnson that history would judge him harshly if Ukraine falls to Russia. Our Kelly O'Donnell reports.
Their meeting described as intense yet productive. The president and congressional leaders facing urgent deadlines and differing priorities, from critical aid for foreign allies.
I think the consequences of inaction every day in Ukraine are dire.
To House Speaker Mike Johnson insisting the border crisis requires executive action from the president.
The first priority of the country is our border and making sure it's secure.
On top of that divide, threat of a phased federal government shutdown. Friday, the first wave of government departments and agencies run out of funds. Among them, the FDA, Transportation, and Veterans Affairs. March 8th, the rest could close, including Defense, Homeland Security, and Justice. A painful replay for 36-year-old Navy wife and mother of two, Nikita Fowler.
This is not our first or even second government shutdown. And it's just the continuous worry of how this is going to impact our family.
Given the harsh consequences, talk of common ground.
The shutdown would damage the economy significantly, and I think we all agree to that, and we need a bipartisan solution.
Optimism, but no clear path yet from the speaker.
We will get the government funded, and we'll keep working on that.
Trying to resolve these big issues is really a test of what's been an uneasy Biden-Johnson relationship. The speaker made a point to say that he and the president had a separate one-on-one meeting after the other congressional leaders, something that Johnson has wanted for months. But the White House characterized it differently, saying it was a brief moment between the president and the speaker as others left the room.
Kelly, thank you. New this morning, the U.S. Army says it is reducing its force by about 24,000, or around 5% of its combat personnel. Most of the posts are already vacant and have been for a while, so those cuts would not lead to actual soldiers being taken off the battlefield. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said the U.S. was moving away from counterterrorism and counterinsurgency, therefore shedding some of those capabilities to be postured for large-scale combat operations. Later this morning, President Biden's son Hunter will sit for a deposition with the House Oversight Committee. For over a year now, House Republicans sought the testimony as part of their impeachment investigation into the president and his son. The GOP's case against President Biden came into question 2 weeks ago when their key source was charged with lying to the FBI about the Biden family. A key witness taking the stand again in Georgia in a hearing that will determine whether District Attorney Fani Willis, who is leading the state's election interference case against Trump, will stay in place. Senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett reports.
This is the man defense attorneys in the Georgia election interference case were hoping would establish the timeline of the romantic relationship between Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis and lead prosecutor Nathan Wade.
I do not have knowledge of it starting or when it started.
On the stand for the second time this month, Terrence Bradley deemed a potential star witness for Donald Trump and his co-defendants as Wade's former divorce attorney. Bradley confronted with text messages he sent suggesting the relationship began before Willis hired Wade to lead the Trump case. But on the stand,
I was speculating.
He tried to walk that back.
When did you first get knowledge of their relationship?
I've said over again that I didn't have any personal information where I could personally say when it started.
At issue for the judge to resolve whether Willis benefited financially from hiring Wade, as defense attorneys have highlighted the pair's vacations together.
It is a lie. It is a lie.
Willis and Wade testified expenses were split and that the relationship only began after Wade was hired. But Willis's former friend cast doubt on that.
You have no doubt that their romantic relationship was in effect from 2019 until the last time you spoke with her?
No doubt.
The state opting not to question Bradley.
Our thanks to Laura for that report. Supervisors in San Francisco formally apologized to the city's black residents. In a unanimous vote, city leaders apologized for the city's role in perpetuating racism and discrimination. Some board members pointed out this declaration didn't come with any action, a sentiment echoed by activists.
This board has already said no money, no cash. The state said no money, no cash. So the question that the NAACP raises, what in the world are you willing to do? And yet you don't have anything else to show? That is a sham.
Several city officials noted this is just the start of the reparations process. Turning now to Texas, where the governor has issued a disaster declaration in 60 counties as rapidly spreading wildfires burn in the state's panhandle. The fires, which have devoured thousands of acres, have prompted evacuations, including at Pantex, the country's main nuclear weapons facility. A spokesperson said it has suspended operations. An on-site fire department is standing by in case the blaze reaches the plant. And more than 4,000 are without power this morning, and high winds are making for tough conditions for firefighters. But there may be some relief on the way. Farther north, Colorado drivers battled out whiteout conditions as snow fell across the state. There were 24 snow squall warnings. That's the most in the 5 years the warning's been used. Multiple cars crashed on Interstate 70 during those storms. Luckily, there were no major injuries. Let's bring in now NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman, who's tracking systems moving across the U.S. this morning. Hi, Angie.
Hi, good morning, Francis. A lot of folks may be waking up to some rumbles of thunder and some strong storms working through portions of the Midwest in the overnight hours. We still do have some of these alerts up this morning, and they'll last at least through the early morning hours. We've got a thunderstorm watch stretching from Michigan into parts of Indiana and Ohio. Notice what you see in that brighter pink. That's a tornado watch. It goes through 6 a.m. Eastern time. And we've also got some of these severe thunderstorm warnings in effect right now as these lines of thunderstorms march a little farther to the east. Now, the threat for severe weather a little lower today. It's not zero. We could see some of these stronger storms still develop across portions of basically Vermont into Pennsylvania. But notice what happens as we get into the evening hours tonight. There's still the heavy rain that we're going to have to deal with, especially along I-95 during that evening commute. Could be a little difficult from Boston to Washington, D.C. This system will exit and the cold air will work in behind it. Here's the deal today. We've seen a major temperature drop in places like Chicago, which was into the mid-70s yesterday. Today, we're only expecting 28 degrees. St. Louis comes down to the low 40s. Little Rock, even in Dallas, into the 50s after 80s and even close to 90 for the past couple of days. Still going to be on the warm side of things across parts of the East Coast. That'll be gone here as we get into tomorrow, though, with temperatures in New York dropping to the 40s. As a look at the weather across the country, let's see what's happening in your neighborhood. 62 degrees today with some showers and thunderstorms expected in New York City, 28 in Chicago with some cooler air filtering in across the Midwest and parts of the southern plains, mid-50s on tap for Dallas, plenty of cloud cover from Little Rock to Memphis and showers and thunderstorms from Raleigh to Atlanta. And that's a look at your forecast, Francis. Back to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Angie. Australian researchers have solved a maritime mystery after 120 years. The team releasing these images of the SS Nemesis wreckage. They're from the ocean floor off the coast of New South Wales, Australia. Researchers say the steamship was transporting coal to Melbourne when it went missing along with 32 crew members during a storm in July of 1904. Its final resting place was discovered in 2022. Early today is Back in a Minute with why homeowners insurance is going through the roof. And has basketball gone from a dribble to a deluge of scoring? The NBA reevaluates whether the best defense is really a good offense.
The fire has grown leaps and bounds. What you see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
We report live from Tel Aviv. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico.
Reporting over the skies of Lahaina.
Here in Florida. The time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
Hundreds of Israelis have gathered to demonstrate. What do the people in Gaza, do you think, what do they need most? A place where Palestinians and Israelis have found common ground.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
News lives in the now.
The horrors of the war on full display on both sides of the Israel-Gaza border.
Protesters are on the streets here. Most of the time, the Iron Dome works, but a few get through. News for the generation of now is NBC News Now. Democracy is happening now. Welcome to a big night that could help shape Republican politics for years to come. Now never stops.
It comes down to turnout. Who shows up? Is it going to be that big block of independents?
Now is where it counts.
What are the issues that matter most to you guys?
What did this debate change for you?
Their number one issue is the economy.
2024. Who's your candidate?
The race is on now. The countdown has begun. News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
What is going to happen now?
Going back and forth because
Oh, yeah, this is it, right?
When I think about what the Today Show does, it's not just about the mornings, it's about your whole day. There's a feeling of we're in there with you. Then let's take on this day together.
Homeowner insurance premiums are spiking across the country, with rates increasing as much as 20% in some areas. Linda Baccaro from NBC New York explains what's behind the growing costs.
The next time your home insurance policy renews, prepare to pay more. Many premiums are going up.
I did not figure it out on a percentage basis, but at least 10, 15% maybe.
What do you think about homeowner insurance premiums going up?
I think it's a problem, especially if you don't have a lot of claims.
What's driving that increase?
The first one is inflation. The cost of home improvement materials has gone up in the past few years. We're talking everything from roof tiles to lumber to appliances.
And insurers are seeing a greater number of costly disasters. Michael Berry is Chief Communications Officer with the Insurance Information Institute.
The federal government announced at year-end 2023 that this was the first year, meaning last year, where they had seen so many $1 billion events. There were 28 in all.
If your premium does go up, here are some ideas to consider to help save money.
If you're in a position to raise your deductible, right away that you're going to see premium rate savings. Then you also should probably bundle your auto and home together if you're not already.
Ask about discounts for making your home more resistant to disasters.
That might be installing storm shutters or a wind-resistant garage door.
Annette Marie decided to compare homeowner insurance premiums.
Because of the increase, I actually had to go shopping and shift, and so I switched companies.
Our thanks to Linda Baccaro for that report. Still to come, a baseball superstar moves across town and picks up right where he left off. We break down the bombs from Shohei Ohtani's first game in Dodger blue right after this.
Still to come on the Channel 2 News.
Well, the waters are certainly receding now.
Still too close to call.
Lester Holt reporting from
Ground Zero, as it's being referred to.
It is, in fact, a taste of freedom. The Haitian people know a little something about resiliency. What's the biggest risk right now? Some of the troops who have been proud. I want to welcome you to the first presidential debate. In fact, we've been told we can't go any farther. See with some resilient folks. Let me get in.
democracy is happening now. Welcome to a big night that could help shape Republican politics for years to come. Now never stops.
It comes down to turnout. Who shows up? Is it going to be that big block of independents?
Now is where it counts.
What are the issues that matter most to you guys?
What did this debate change for you?
Their number one issue is the economy.
2024, who's your candidate?
The race is on now.
The countdown has begun.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Kristen Welker hosts Meet the Press every Sunday on NBC.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida, from Lewiston, Maine. Part of our continued reporting. This is what a country at war looks like. Women, children. What is it like? Countless neighborhoods across the region that look just like this. Everybody good? It took for all this damage to
Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
I'm Joe Fryer.
I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started with breaking news.
The record number of migrant crossings.
The latest developments in the war between Israel and Hamas.
A closer look at the good news we got about the economy. If you do have points or you have miles, is now a good time to use them.
A lot of people spend a lot of time sitting. 20 minutes of exercise might be able to help out.
How does it feel to be an out college athlete?
Freeing the first woman on a lunar mission. What was it like to get that news?
Morning News Now, streaming weekdays at 7.
Morning, Al.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida. Part of our continued reporting. Safe. Everybody good? Women, children.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
3-2 to Shohei Ohtani as Leon stretches and comes to the plate now. Swung on, hit high in the air to left and deep. This ball carrying. This ball is gone. It is Dodger debut.
Yep, LA's $700 million investment already seems to be paying off. In his first spring training game as a Dodger, dual threat Shohei Ohtani hammered a 3-2 pitch from White Sox pitcher Dominic Leone for a 2-run homer. It was the first game for the reigning AL MVP since undergoing right elbow surgery in September, which will sideline him as a pitcher for the upcoming season. But can you imagine for the fans to be able to spring training, this is it, back to the ball game, and they see this. So Rogers manager Dave Roberts said on Ohtani, he's just built differently, and that is a perfect example.
And
right
he
there.
is. I mean, he's not going to pitch, but he sure is going to hit, and he proved that already so far this season. So really cool stuff there. Exciting for the Dodgers. And now to a rare moment of defeat for the U.S. women's national soccer team. They faced off against Mexico on Monday night's group stage game in the CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup. 38 minutes in, Jackie Ovalle gave Mexico a 1-0 lead over the powerhouse U.S. team. After the U.S. failed to get on the board, Mexico then delivered the final blow in stoppage time with this rocket off the leg of Mayra Pelayo. While the U.S. had already clinched a spot in the next round of the tournament, the loss was the team's first against Mexico since November 2010 and just their second in 43 matchups. The rest of the world is getting better. We know this. It's going to be obvious in the next round of this international play, and we'll see if the U.S. can hang. Hopefully they can.
I hope so. A tough blow there, and hopefully that'll be just the incentive and motivation they need to get right back at it.
Yeah.
All right, could we one day see an NBA game end in a 2-0 score? Okay, probably not. But amidst a season where offenses are scoring a record number of points, some are pining for a return of strong defense on the hardwood. On Tuesday, ESPN reported that the NBA's competition committee has officially begun reviewing whether changes need to be made to the game to restore balance on both sides of the ball. Well, it comes after this month's All-Star game led to a record 397 combined points. And you got multiple players, including LeBron James and Rudy Gobert, noting that the league has moved to favoring offenses. And for the fans, that's for the players aspect, right? But for the fans, too, they want a good game to cheer on. So you got to consider teams are averaging 115.4 points per game. That is the most in 50 years.
How much of this is that game being elevated, though, as the years go on?
Maybe all of the above, right? Something that all have to consider. Okay, coming up, we've got a consumer alert to tell you about over certain eye care ointments. And if your favorite thing about bed and breakfast is breakfast, we got the perfect pancake-filled place for your next trip.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, and this
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
Now is raw.
How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, I know, right? 5 seconds. There is some late-breaking news. 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses. By the Hammers with everything.
All right, and this
News lives in the now. It's coming at us every second. News is more now than ever.
Just outside of the Israeli military headquarters.
Now is raw.
This tunnel just goes on and on.
Now is real.
We get to see democracy in action for the very first time in the 2024 race.
Now is constant.
You gotta see this.
Future is now. News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
What is going to happen now?
Going back and forth because
Oh, yeah, this is it, right?
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. You see behind me is typical. How you doing?
pretty bad.
We're back now with what you need to know early today. Just a week after recalling around 280,000 vehicles over transmission issues, Toyota is now doing the same for more than 380,000 of its Tacoma pickups from 2022 and 2023. Bolts on the rear axle of the impacted models could loosen and eventually fall off, causing part of it to detach. The company says this could increase the risk of a crash. Meanwhile, 4 eye ointment products sold at Walmart and CVS have been recalled over a potential eye infection risk. The products sold under Equate and CVS Health brands were made in a facility in India that may have been unsanitary. That's according to an FDA inspection. Warner Brothers Discovery has halted merger talks with Paramount Global. Sources familiar with the matter tell NBC. Well, this comes after several months of discussions. Today is National Pancake Day, and to celebrate, Eggo created a house of pancakes bed and breakfast in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. You can visit hometogo.com to try to book a free 3-night stay in March, but you better hurry. It is first come, first serve. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Hallie. It's good to be with you tonight. What do we know that voters care about? The economy, right? You are seeing that firsthand yourself on the ground there today. This is two things. It is pretty big medical news. It is also a pretty big mystery. And oh, by the way, it's driven by one of the most controversial people in the United States. What's happening? They have tweaked my monitor, and I can see now you are, in fact, soaking wet. I am deeply sorry. I apologize for the many questions.
Will never be questioned.
News lives in the now.
The front lines are still very active. This is like quicksand, and officials say an entire town is cut off.
This close to actually understand why people had to jump in the ocean.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
When I think about what the Today Show does, it's not just about the mornings, it's about your whole day. There's a feeling of we're in there with you. Then let's take on this day together.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida, from Lewiston, Maine. Part of our continued reporting. This is what a country in war looks like. Women, children. What is it like? Countless neighborhoods across the region that look just like this.
Iran,
everybody good? I get tough for all this damage to
This Black Heritage Month, one NFL player is in the spotlight for showing off his African roots through fashion. GQ naming the Cleveland Browns linebacker the most stylish NFL player earlier this month. Our Zincle Asamoah has the story.
When it comes to football fashion, NFL players are usually remembered for their jerseys and cleats.
When I wear it represents, a certain revolution that went on, a certain change.
But Cleveland Browns linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's unabashedly African attire is making headlines. The player just highlighted in GQ.
How does it feel being what many call the NFL's best-dressed man?
It feels good to be recognized.
The 24-year-old was born in Virginia, primarily raised by his mother and back and forth with his Ghanaian father. He attended University of Notre Dame, drafted by the Browns in 2021. While his styles spanned the continent, the journey to fully embracing his West African heritage took time.
During your rookie season, I believe you were wearing sort of typical Western clothes.
Yeah.
What sparked the change?
My rookie year, I would throw some of, the African fabrics in there. But the connections that I was growing was more so through study. Some of the family members that I had.
One of those family members was his older brother, Joshua, a former linebacker at William & Mary.
He was always the one that did the African garments. He was always the the guy that would put dashiki on the school, maybe with some sneakers.
Tragically, in April 2022, Owusu-Koramoah's brother was found dead inside a burned house. A man, Ronald Scott, later arrested and charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of arson. Scott is awaiting trial.
In some ways, it sounds like you're carrying on your brother's legacy.
I like to think of it as that. What that means to me is that I'm living for my brother. My brother lives in me.
The linebacker also founding a nonprofit, NQA, supporting student athletes in Ghana through sports and community engagement. His passion for the next generation spotlighted in a now viral Super Bowl ad promoting the NFL to African youth.
I wonder, what impact do you think you're having on the next generation, those other first-generation African Black men who are seeing you?
And when they see me, they are looking at someone who embraces their identity.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah highlighting African identity and Black heritage, one play and outfit at a time.
Our thanks to Zincle Asamoah for that story. Great to watch him on the field and off, especially with those outfits. Thanks for watching early today. I'm Frances Rivera. Have a great Wednesday. Your news continues right here on NBC and our NBC stations. Next up, Super Tuesday. President Biden and Donald Trump skate through Michigan, ever closer to an Election Day rematch. But are cracks starting to show in their campaigns? We're live in D.C. with the latest twists in the race for the White House. A state of emergency in the Lone Star State, record heat and strong winds fueling a wildfire raging in the Texas Panhandle. It's already the 5th largest in the state's history. How crews are working around the clock to get it under control. The dangers of deep fakes, the very real threat of artificial intelligence, setting off alarms in schools across the country. Changing route while Apple is slamming the brakes on its plans for an electric car and steering toward an entirely different hot new tech. And stay with me and you'll see a world of poor fabrication. Families thinking they scored a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory wind up with something a little closer to the notorious Fry Festival. It's Wednesday, February 28th. Early Today starts right now. Good morning. Glad you're with me. I'm Frances Rivera. We begin with the latest results coming out of Michigan. NBC News projects that President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are the winners in their primaries, continuing to set the stage for a 2020 rematch. NBC's Bree Jackson joins us now. Hi, Bree. President Biden is facing a new challenge on the campaign trail.
That's right. Good morning, Francis. So the president is facing backlash over the response to the war between Israel and Hamas. In Michigan, President Biden won over 80% of the vote, but more than 10% of the ballots in the Democratic primary went to the option of uncommitted. A group called Listen to Michigan organized this effort to put pressure on the Biden administration to call for a lasting ceasefire in the war. And they say activists in other states have reached out hoping to launch similar campaigns. In a statement, Mr. Biden thanked Michiganders for making their voices heard, but did not directly address these uncommitted voters. Instead, the president touted investments made for the auto industry and his support of the Auto Workers Union. Meanwhile, Donald Trump celebrated his win by calling into a watch party.
It's going to be fantastic. We win Michigan. We win the whole thing. The auto workers are with us. We have so many people with us. They've destroyed the auto working business. I can tell you this, November 5th cannot come fast enough because our country's in serious trouble.
Trump's remaining challenger, Nikki Haley, is not backing down. She campaigned in Colorado yesterday as she focuses on Super Tuesday. More than a dozen primaries will be held next week with over 800 Republican delegates up for grabs. Francis.
Another big one around the corner. Okay, Bree, thank you. New this morning, today, President Biden's son, Hunter, will sit for a deposition with the House Oversight Committee. For over a year, House Republicans have sought the testimony as part of their impeachment investigation into the president and his son. The GOP's case against President Biden came into question 2 weeks ago when their key source was charged with lying to the FBI about the Biden family. New this morning, the U.S. Army says it is reducing its force by about 24,000, or around 5% of its combat personnel. Most of the posts are already vacant and have been for a while, so those cuts would not lead to actual soldiers being taken off the battlefield. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said the U.S. was moving away from counterterrorism and counterinsurgency, therefore shedding some of those capabilities to be postured for large-scale combat operations. A Ukraine funding meeting at the White House between President Biden, Vice President Harris, and congressional leaders got heated at times. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said it was, quote, one of the most intense I've ever encountered of my many meetings in the Oval Office. The Democrat says he urged Republican Speaker Johnson to, quote, get it done, telling reporters later that history would judge Johnson harshly if Ukraine falls to Russia. In response, Johnson reiterated the GOP's demand to essentially seal off the southern border to migration before any funds would go overseas. Meanwhile, NATO has caused a stir on its own turf through startling suggestions that Western countries could send ground troops into Ukraine. For the latest on that, let's go to Claudio Lavanga. Good morning, Claudio. So tell us what happened.
Good morning, Francis. Well, on Monday, the French President Emmanuel Macron suggested that European leaders and Western officials were considering or discussing the possibility of sending ground troops into Ukraine, which of course means NATO troops. Now, he did say that there was no consensus yet, but also that such an option shouldn't be ruled out. But even that suggestion, as predictable, enraged Russia, with the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov saying that sending NATO troops into Ukraine will make a conflict between NATO and Russia inevitable, and warned NATO countries that to consider the consequences of such an action. And some NATO countries did clearly consider the consequences even before the warning by Peskov, because, for instance, Germany downplayed the comments by Macron. Spain and the UK made it very clear that they reject outright that idea. And all of them said that they prefer to continue helping Ukraine by sending or keep sending weapons and funds. As per NATO itself, the Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that there is currently no plan to send NATO troops into Ukraine, but he didn't mention any future ambitions. Francis?
Claudia, thank you for the update. New York City's mayor is calling for changes to be made in the city's sanctuary laws. Mayor Eric Adams says he believes the city should work with immigration officials to deport migrants who are suspected of violent crimes. Current policies limit cooperation with ICE unless there is a conviction. A reporter asked if this would remove due process.
They didn't give due process to the person that they shot or punched or killed. You know, there's just a philosophical disagreement here.
Any changes to the sanctuary laws would need the support of the city council. Now, the council speaker made it clear they have no intention of making such a move. Two men are facing 20 years to life in prison after a New York jury found them guilty of killing Run DMC's Jam Master Jay. The DJ's godson, Carl Jordan Jr., and childhood friend Ronald Washington were convicted of fatally shooting the hip-hop legend at his Queens recording studio back in 2002. Prosecutors argued the murder was driven by a potentially lucrative drug deal. The pair was arrested in 2020, and both have maintained their innocence. Turning to Texas, where the governor has issued a disaster declaration in 60 counties as rapidly spreading wildfires burn in the state's panhandle. The fires, which have devoured thousands of acres, have prompted evacuations, including at Pantex, the country's main nuclear weapons facility. A spokesperson said it has suspended operations. An on-site fire department is standing by in case the blaze reaches the plant site. And more than 4,000 are without power this morning, and high winds are making for tough conditions for firefighters, but there may be some relief on the way. And farther north, Colorado drivers battled whiteout conditions as snow fell across the state. There were 24 snow squall warnings. That's the most in the 5 years those warnings have been used. Multiple cars crashed on I-70 during the storms. Luckily, there were no major injuries. Okay, let's bring in NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman, who is tracking systems moving all across the U.S. this morning. Hi, Angie.
Hi, good morning, Francis. We had some wicked weather overnight for some folks across parts of the Midwest, and we've still got some of these alerts in effect. We've just seen the thunderstorm watch come down in parts of Michigan, but notice this tornado watch is going to last until 6 a.m. We even have some of these thunderstorm warnings happening now across parts of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. This system is going to work its way to the east through the day today, and that means more thunderstorms from parts of the Midwest all the way to the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic included in this as well. And it could mean that we'll have some delays along those roads. Commute won't be great this evening along I-95 from Boston to D.C. We've also got wind alerts up for 115 million people, much of the East included in this, with these wind gusts anywhere 30, 40 miles per hour through the day today. Something to note as we get through the rest of your afternoon hours. Meanwhile, chilly temperatures behind the system as it works to the east. We're going to stay warm along the East Coast, but look at Chicago, 28 degrees. That is the high temperature for today after dealing with the 70s yesterday. Let's look at the weather across the country. Let's see what's happening in your neighborhood. 62 degrees in Pittsburgh today and dealing with some showers and thunderstorms across much of the Northeast. Mild conditions for Charleston and Jacksonville into the upper 70s to low 80s. Some rain from Jackson to Montgomery. 46 degrees and mostly sunny skies for Oklahoma City. And that's a look at your forecast. Francis, back to you.
All right, a lot to watch out there. Thanks for doing that, Angie. Up next, discord on TikTok, why more hit songs are leaving the social media giant, and the cruel reality of deepfakes, why the inappropriate use of AI is raising alarm at schools across the country.
Now is raw. How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Hey, I'm Hallie. It's good to be with you.